Thank you, Chair, Ranking Member, members of the committee, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share my priorities for matters under your committee's jurisdiction for the remainder of the 119th Congress. Today, I especially ask for your continued support of the U.S. Coast Guard, especially in terms of its critical role in the Indo-Pacific. Now, my home state, of course, as an ocean state, relies heavily on and has benefited greatly from the presence of the Coast Guard. We fully appreciate the Coast Guard's direct support of Hawaii residents through its District Oceania headquarters in Honolulu in performance of its statutory missions like search and rescue and maritime environmental protection. But today I would like to especially highlight the Coast Guard's indispensable role for our country beyond Hawaii throughout the broader Pacific. Of course, the Pacific Islands region has long held critical importance to our country on a number of fronts. However, I think we can all recognize that our engagement has suffered from cycles of insufficient focus, attention, and presence, a situation the People's Republic of China and its friends have been only too willing to exploit. And this, of course, includes the PRC's own quote-unquote Coast Guard, which falls under the People's Armed Police, a paramilitary force that reports to the PRC's Central Military Commission, as well as its maritime militia, also a projection of its armed forces. Our Coast Guard, in stark contrast, is uniquely positioned to advance our engagement, especially in face of rising tensions in the Indo-Pacific region. The Coast Guard's expertise lends itself particularly to strengthening presence and partnerships, focusing on maritime law enforcement and addressing gray zone tactics through capacity building, joint patrols, and other means. In addition, the Coast Guard has a highly respected track record of assisting partner nations, especially the island nations of the Pacific, with their real-world challenges, from maritime domain awareness, exclusive economic zone and fisheries protection, including through joint shipwrighter agreements, high seas fisheries treaty enforcement, transnational law enforcement, search and rescue, and humanitarian aid. For all of these reasons, the white hulls of the Coast Guard are widely accepted and welcomed throughout the Indo-Pacific, and leaders in the region have consistently requested a larger Coast Guard presence. Yet, despite its current and especially potential contributions to our Indo-Pacific engagement, the reality is that the Coast Guard does not have today the full suite of authorities and resources to conduct this expanding mission. As one response, to enhance the Coast Guard's role, Congressman Trent Kelly and I introduced bipartisan H.R. 3397, the Pacific Ready Coast Guard Act. Our bill would help our Coast Guard transform into one that is fully prepared to take on the unique challenges and opportunities that the Pacific region poses in this Pacific century. Specifically, it would establish a Coast Guard-led center of expertise in Indo-Pacific maritime governance. Its mission would be to work with partner nations to provide and facilitate education and research on maritime governance best practices, including how to build critical regional state capacity. Additionally, our bill would also require the Coast Guard to issue an annual plan for its operations in the Indo-Pacific, evaluate the feasibility of a standing Indo-Pacific maritime group to conduct humanitarian and law enforcement missions in the Indo-Pacific, review the feasibility of establishing more forward operating bases in the Pacific, and advise on expanding Coast Guard attaché positions in U.S. embassies in the region. Thanks to bipartisan support of our bill, the provision requiring the Coast Guard to issue an annual plan for Indo-Pacific operations was signed into law with the fiscal year 2026 National Defense Authorization Act after its inclusion in the Coast Guard Authorization Act. The Pacific Ready Coast Guard Act will further focus on specific areas where Coast Guard operations and resources in the Indo-Pacific should be updated and expanded to match the Coast Guard's expanded mission and to fully realize its potential contributions to our increased engagement throughout this critical region. I ask for the committee's continued consideration and support of our measure, and sincerely appreciate the committee's consideration not only of this bill, but of all efforts to expand and improve the Coast Guard's presence in our critical Indo-Pacific region. Mahalo.
Gentlemen, yield.